and welcome to this special installment of the Introverted Poets podcast, filling in for Ilana Jade since she only does audio. I am Clarissa Ann, also known as the Geeky Fit Mom, and tonight we'll be hearing from an author who is not only a publisher and an educator and a mother. Her name is Cindy Doughtery-Bernal, author of Looking into Infinity and also a known publisher of Elusive Publishing. She is a participant at the Mystic Market Fest when they do poetry readings down at Lunada on Chihuahua Street in Laredo by the Dairy Queen, where writers and local vendors go and share their products and their works of art, and sometimes there's tarot readers. So if you're not familiar with this podcast or you are just tuning in, hello and welcome to the third installment of the YouTube platform for the video casts for the Introverted Poets podcast. Back in 2016, the Introverted Poets podcast started as just an audio only platform for the shy writers, and with the new season came in new faces and new things. Miss Monroe spearheaded the YouTube platform and the TikTok platform for the brave writers who are not shy and want to go out there and share their works. Sí hablamos español y esperamos que un día uno de ustedes que habla en español y escribe poesía en español los envíe un mensaje en nuestra Gmail at introvertedpoetsociety@gmail.com. Todo junto. The name of the game is anonymity. Working with pen names was the whole ball game thing. So other ways for reaching us and submitting will be posted in the episode description wherever you are watching us, be it Facebook, YouTube, Anchor, or Spotify. Or if you are hearing us, you'll be able to hear that on any of the many 6 platforms that you can be able to hear us, be it from Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and so much more. So for the extroverted folks, we now have a video platform like right here that you're seeing me. YouTube channel, and coming soon is TikTok. So also, like I mentioned, we also got the YouTube, the Facebook, Spotify, and Anchor, because Spotify and Anchor work together, and now with that collaboration we got the video casts. So yeah, so for the extroverted folks, we have these for you all, so you can come on and share your platform and have it reach millions of people on the worldwide interweb. And for us shy folks, or the people that are shy, we still have the audio only platform. But however, if you are brave, for being a brave heart, we give you an extra bonus. Not only is your episode an audio only episode, it's also a video. It just depends on how you, the audience, prefer to have your podcast delivered to you, be it audio only or video. It depends if you're an auditory learner or a visual learner. So before we get wrapped up in all this bureaucratic stuff and bogged down in the details, let's get down and play with this Zoom call here with Cindy Doughtery-Bernal. What are you doing, or what do you prefer? Which last name do you prefer to be called?
Well, Bernal is fine. Doughtery is my pen name and my maiden name. I started writing because of the loving support of my parents, especially my father, who also wanted to be a writer. Uh-huh. So that's why I keep that on the page. But I don't mind being called Cindy or Cindy Bernal. Perfectly fine. A lot easier to pronounce.
Yeah, that's true. So since I met you in book club, oh my goodness, it's amazing to have an actual publisher on with us, and not only a publisher, but someone that's kind of like a Swiss Army knife that does it all. She's a educator, a publisher, a poet, and a mom. How do you manage all of that?
I'm a bit of an insomniac and definitely a perfectionist. So my main thing is either just unfiltered chaos and I juggle everything all at once, or super, super structure, depending on my ADHD day, right? So I love planners and I like to plan things out. And then hopefully, the universe works with me and it works the way I want it to work. If not, I just dive into the chaos.
And do you have a preferred planner? Are you like a team Erin Condren girl, or you are like a team Happy Planner? Because I can't pick between the two personally.
I actually love to do bullet journaling. That's like my preferred planner method, because that way I can tailor it to the way that I want. Right. So I definitely love to do bullet journaling, and I'll do the 2-page spread that you see familiar in a lot of journals, where you'll see the month and a very nice zoomed in with big boxes kind of a thing, because I love stickers and I love drawing. Mm-hmm. And then I'll do the week by week. So that helps me kind of keep things hopefully in somewhat of a structured organizational pattern. And plus, I have my husband. He's such a sweetie. He has no qualms about, he sees me on my computer typing away and he's like, I got you. And like, he'll take my toddler, especially the youngest, because the other ones are teenagers. So as long as they have Wi-Fi and food, they're good.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I feel you on that. Shout out to the supportive husbands. My husband's very supportive. He's like, what do you got to do? Do you got to interview somebody today? Are you working on a module? Are you writing? He'll take my toddler as well. So shout out to those husbands that help us succeed. Yeah, because we have a
Yes,
very successful
definitely.
for mom. There's a very supportive husband.
Yeah, there is.
So how are you doing this fine afternoon?
Wonderful. Just chaotic as always because I'm organizing my bookshelves, and that always brings me drama because then I try to like organize them by like author or by color or by spine, and I'm never fully satisfied, and then it's done and I just want to walk away from it.
That's amazing. And do you do that like in the writing process as well?
Yeah, it's kind of like my biggest thing with being a writer, whether I'm doing my prose or my poetry, is if you're running out of ideas, if your your creative tank is falling on empty, then fill it up. So I'm obsessed with my books because I tend to pick up things because I like the cover, because I like the title, because somebody recommended it to me, because it was for under $1 at a thrift store, right? And so when I'm starting to feel like I'm struggling for the next set of words, for the next stream of thought, I step away from it and I pick up a book. You know, I have a conversation, and sometimes it's with other people and sometimes it's with myself, but you know, you gotta kind of fill yourself up in order to be able to produce something out as well. So reading is a huge part of my writing process. Huge.
You hear that, people? Readers are our leaders and they become writers. Okay. So reading and writing is interwoven into everything. And I know you are like, you're saying that because you both are educators, but we got a point.
Yes.
You need to write your police reports. You need to write all of that, and you need to be able to read. And that's a very good idea on how to manage writer's block, because that was something I'd like to ask a lot of writers. Like we all at one point or another hit that dreaded wall where you're just like, no, I can't. And that's an excellent way of doing it. Just go, read a book, and your mind in the background will slowly figure out what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes it's you get inspiration from the smallest things. Like I've been stuck like any and every writer, right? Where you're just like hitting a brick wall. And I'm like, no, I'm going to step away from it because I stress myself out and that just raises my anxiety. So I'm like, step away. And I read, and then I'm reading anything from fiction novels to autobiographies to sometimes just those transcripts, because I like watching YouTube. Don't get me wrong. I watch TV. I love like all the shows, and I'm addicted to Grey's Anatomy right now. Super late to the game, but I'm addicted to it right now. But I love to read the transcripts off of a lot of YouTube blogs and things like that. And I just feel that conversational English will give you a turn of phrase that's a lot more unique because people just speak without thinking sometimes. And then I'm like, I like that. I like that word. I like that phrase. Oh, I think I can work with that image. And it ends up becoming like another story or poem or whatever for me.
That's exactly right. I just discovered the transcripts on YouTube, and I'm like, whoa, like it's something new. And I do that on Netflix too. Do you put the subtitles?
Oh, definitely. For some reason, it doesn't work for me if there's no subtitles.
Same. Like
I can't.
I'll like ignore it. Like I'm terrible. Like to sit me down to watch Netflix, you can't. Like you need to take me to a theater where I don't have anything that's mine to be like, okay, I'm gonna watch the movie because I have no other choice.
Yeah, I know. My husband tends to say that my ears don't work because if we're watching movies or shows, and a lot of the times we watch something together, my brain is like in 25 different directions. But if you turn on the captions, I'm like, like I do a lot better.
Maybe that's what my husband needs to do with me, because I was like, we need to watch Mad Men together. You need to watch Mad Men with me. It's an amazing show. It's an amazing show. I passed out on him because there wasn't any subtitles, and he just binged the first season all night. I woke up, I was like, it's 5 a.m. You're on season 2. He's like, well, you can't just leave me like that with a show. I'm like, whatever. But I'm gonna try that subtitle thing. So you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that your father is the reason behind the pen name Daughtery and the reason why you keep it there. So how did your dad introduce you into writing, or how did that happen?
Well, my family has always been very supportive and very encouraging in things that catch our interest. And growing up, if it's believable, especially to the people that met me afterwards and not before, I was super shy. Like I was like insanely scared of my own shadow shy.
Oh,
And I hated eye contact. And so, being part of the traditional Hispanic household, we would go to a lot of carne asadas and convivios with, all the people from church and all the family. And a majority of my mother's family is here in Laredo, Texas. So, every gathering, even if it was just family, would be minimum 30, 40 people. And that was terrifying to me. Even though they were my cousins and I did play with them or get along with them, it was just too much. So I would pull away. And the biggest distraction for me, so that we could stay there longer and I wouldn't, be giving my mom a hard time. I like, go, let's go home, is I would bring a book or two or three. And my father encouraged that a lot. My mother especially, she would take us to the Laredo Public Library like, every other weekend, definitely for summers. And when I was in school, I was always sick,
oh,
like with bronchitis and pneumonia and asthma and sun fevers and God knows what else. So a lot of the times they would send me to the library instead of to the gym or to the field, right? And so the librarian there, who's like another, parental figure in the background, right? She would constantly give me books. And when she saw me like kind of consuming them rather quickly, she started giving me more complex books. So I would bring those home and I would talk about the stories and I would tell my mom and I would, catch my dad, because my dad worked like insane hours, but I would catch my dad. And it was just always something that was like a safe space for me. So my family, my brothers, my sisters, my mom, my dad, they all like, ay, Cindy, otra vez con un libro. Like, and nobody ever made me feel bad for that. On the contrary, they would always encourage me for it.
that's amazing that you had a great support. So at what age did you start like, I'm going to write something? This is what I'm going to try. At 5, that's amazing. So you were like in pre-K, kinder?
Kinder, because my mother helped me. Like I learned how to write, like physically write, because my mom. I would always sit in her lap when she was like budgeting the household and writing checks and stuff. So she would give me like, if you remember checkbooks,
Yes.
she would give me like the little extra pages, the little like the ones where you would have to like
The
keep
copy.
track. Mhm.
Yeah.
And she would give me those because she always had extra. And she would like give me the pen or the pencil or whatever she had, and she would trace letters for me, and then I would trace them out. And so I started writing in her lap. And by the time I went to school, I could pretty much put together like the basic words. And so I started writing like little mini stories. God knows where those things ended up, because I would just write them on like, little spiral notebooks or a yellow notepad, whatever was on hand, with my little chicken scratch drawings. And I would put together little stories. My mom likes to remind me of that a lot. And from there, it just kind of launched off. It became a thing. I started doing journal entries. I started, keeping a little diary like most girls did. And I started kind of crafting more structured pieces after 4th, 5th grade, because I had a teacher, an English teacher in 5th grade, Miss Torres, who gave us the task of putting together a poetry collection. And she gave us like, little templates and example pieces so that we could kind of model ourselves after. A lot of Shel Silverstein. And it was just something that, how you find your niche, right?
Yeah.
Some people, the first time they catch a baseball, some people, the first time they shoot a basketball, some people, the first time they, take apart a radio or whatever catches their interest. Mm-hmm. Writing was like the cherry on top. I already love reading. And now writing, I was like, ooh, I can do something with this. So I started putting together stuff. And one of my poems from way back when, it was called Clubbles because it was a combination of clouds and bubbles. It was one of those template poems. It actually got recognized in the 5th grade team because it was very like my teacher said it had a lot of good imagery.
That's amazing. That's wow. And so would you say that your writing would like reflect a lot of the genres you were reading at the time, or do they still do that?
Oh, more so now than then. I think then I was a little bit more hesitant or shy to mimic some of my favorite authors. And middle school, the turbulence of the tween years,
Yeah.
I really dove into a lot of the dark prose and fiction and poetry. So what is it called? I'm not sure if I'm recalling the title correctly. Dear Alice, or Don't Ask Alice.
Oh, it's Go Ask Alice.
Go Ask Alice. Thank you. Go Ask Alice was a book I came across in middle school. A friend of mine had it, and like she was like, "Hey, you should read it too." And it was just so much, like so intense and so dark. And I fell in love with it, and I started writing a lot more along the lines of, the darker side of the emotional spectrum. And I had severe social anxiety. So that was in my pieces a lot. And it went hand in hand. So I started seeking out more influential authors. And I remembered my love of The Raven of Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm Poe obsessed. Like he's like at the top niche. But I also, in high school and in college, started getting more exposed to other authors, especially other female authors. I was like really into Sylvia Plath for a few years with the Bell Jar, and then I started reading more Pablo Neruda and Isabel Allende, because I was like, I'm looking at all these poets, I'm looking at all these authors, and a lot of them were male. So I started looking for female authors. And then I noticed, a lot of these male and female authors that I was being exposed to in courses in high school, because I was in the advanced program, in college because I was doing an English major, right? A lot of these authors that I was being exposed to weren't me, And so I started hunting for more, and through really, really wonderful professors that helped kind of give me like a guiding tool, apart from, of course, my friends enjoying kind of like asking them, because readers gather readers, although they were more like extroverted.
Yeah.
I started coming across more poets, more authors that just made me feel more seen in a way, because I was like, hey, I eat tamales, like they were talking about it, and the only one I had known before was Sandra Cisneros, which is a wonderful author, but that's not it. That's not only like her, there's more, and I really, really dove into that, especially afterwards. So like I don't think I've ever really stopped the flow of reading. Even while I was pregnant, those days where you couldn't feel like, oh, I don't want to get up and stuff. The one thing I would reach for is a book. I had difficult pregnancies, so every time I get hospitalized, my husband knew that in my grab bag, there had to be a book. If I was going out of town on a road trip, 2 or 3 books. Like that. So there's always something for me to kind of occupy my mind with, because I'm scared of a lot of everything else. Like if in the car, I'm always like, oh, we're gonna crash. Is this gonna hit us? Is the truck gonna be like all that stuff? And then being out of town with being a mom, you have to keep track of, your kids, and did you bring the medicines in case of, and a lot of things that will like just cause a little tornado.
Yes.
And the way that I find my peace so that I don't drive everybody around me crazy, I'll pick up a book.
Yeah, I feel you on that with being a mom and trying to balance everything with, that's exactly what I do too. I always have to have my backpack with my iPad so I can write or create music.
Yes. That's awesome.
Or with my books, because I need to read something, because if not, I'm going to find the bookstore and I'm going to find something.
Yes.
And so they're like, okay, we can't let her
Oh,
go.
and God forbid you finish the book you have while you're still out. You're like, oh no.
What do I do? Yes, they're
Mhm.
like, do not let her go to a bookstore unsupervised because, yeah, you're going to lose her there.
Yeah, definitely.
She's gone. So how did publishing fall into your life along with like, becoming an author? Did that happen simultaneously or did that?
Not necessarily simultaneously. My first collection I put out in high school.
Ooh.
It was a way that I felt that I could stand out amongst a whole group of applicants for a scholarship because I'm the youngest of six. My mother only made it to elementary. My father only made it to high school. My father was the only one who worked. My brothers were already in college, and I wanted more. So I knew that if I wanted more and not kind of put that stress and strain on my family, I would have to get it myself. So I applied to scholarships like crazy. I looked at the criterias, and I mean, it's reading, right? So everything that constitutes reading helps you so much. And I found a series of scholarships that I qualified for. And part of it was like, having a kind of like a portfolio, right? And I was like, I don't know what to do. And at the time I was a magnet student. And I was working with the Magnet Tribune with Mr. Mark Weber.
Shout out to Mr. Weber and the tapestry people at VMT.
Yes,
I did
the
VMT.
tapestry.
Dr.
And
Tired.
I had started with Miss Rose Rabin with the Dead Poets Society, but she left Magnet, I think, from my freshman to sophomore year, something like that. So I jumped with journalism with Mr. Mark Weber. And he told me, he's like, well, if you need a portfolio, why don't you put together some of your writings? And I was like, that's a portfolio. Like, yeah, I get you. And so I started plucking pieces, and he helped me kind of like narrow it down a little bit. And then I launched with it, and I came up with my first collection called Shades of Gray, and that was back in 2000.
So they might have stole your idea there. I'm just kidding.
When I first saw the title, I was like, wait a minute. But no, mine has to do all with dark, anxious and anger management poetry. And because of the guidance, editorial speaking through Mr. Mark Weber and another couple of friends of mine that worked on the Tribune that were wonderful editors and gave me tips and tricks for like layout and design and stuff, I kind of like really fell in love with it. So I started working on zines and projects on my own, and I still kept writing and submitting pieces. FYI, I did get the scholarship. My collection of poetry is still on the shelves of the president of the university at the time, because I went to TAMU, Dr. Ray Keck.
Yeah. Dr. Keck's amazing.
I know, and he was on the committee for the scholarship interview, and it kind of helped, in some ways, I guess, help validate what I thought of my writing, because you know how it is, the first time you expose your
writer
piece,
is your own worst critic. Like,
horrible.
That publishes their stuff is the one that's literally tearing down their work. Like, no,
yeah, definitely. It's like for every one piece you see, I've destroyed 20.
Yeah.
And when I went to TAMU, I got into the writing center, and I contributed to the bridge, to TAMU Bridge. I started hosting workshops under the guidance of Mr. Raycock there at the writing center. He was amazing. He was wonderful. And I became enrolled in the English Honor Society. I think it was Elvira Mante, my friend, was the president at the time when I was in the English Honor Society. And it was just a wonderful experience being surrounded by like-minded people in that sense, where you can go off and talk about your nerdy love and obsession with contronyms and antonyms and all that stuff, right? Antonyms. And so I kept writing, but it was just like observational pieces and opinion essays, reports like crazy for like the tutoring center and things like that. but I was still feeding the passion. And then on the private side, I kept writing my poetry and short stories, and I would write down novel ideas and things like that. But I don't think I shared my stuff again after that first collection. Like, not my stuff, you know what I mean? Not my close to the chest, personal, this is where I'm feeling all the feelings stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think I shared that until I got on Instagram, which was 2009, 10, somewhere around there, maybe 12. And I have no idea when Instagram started. It was like a little while after that. And I came up with an anonymous name at that time, right? And it was, usernames were all about anonymity, like you were talking about with the beginning of your podcast. And I needed something to hype myself up, basically. I needed something that I was like, I need to stop waiting for compliments. If I haven't even shared anything, there's no way the compliments are going to roll in, and critiques come hand in hand with compliments, and I got to open myself up to that door, right? But I was like, I'm going to give myself the best positive reinforcement to begin with, so that I don't scare myself or get scared by others. So I called myself a goddess, and I came up with the username Poetry Goddess 88. Poetry being my main form of writing, goddess because I feel that every female and every identified female carries a sense of magic within them, and that is also at the core of a lot of my writings. And the 88 because it's the double infinity, which stands for untouchable.
That's right. Very spiritual. And yeah, so which goes into this right here, into looking into infinity. It's amazing. I can't put it down. It's just that nobody leaves me alone long enough. But I started making my notes, and like zombie, like I really like that one so much, just because I feel like there's like a 90s reference to it. Was this inspired by like the Cranberries by any chance?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like alt rock and emo goth and stuff in a lot of my writing.
Because all your writers are emo, like even like Professor Nolan, he's like super like hardcore, like very frank and direct with his feelings. But I'm pretty sure he's an amazing writer. He has to be. He's the one that pushed me to like get better at my writing. He was like, you're not doing good. This is what you got to do correctly. This is where you gotta go. You guys got to get better at researching and the pre-writing process.
Yes,
for those
definitely.
Of you who want to write everything.
Yeah, and then you pick the cream of the crop. You pick what's best off of that. I also had the blessing and the benefit of having Dr. Suzette Bishop from TAMU look over some of my writings. And I remember it was like one of those almost fangirl moments, because I participated in the Laredo Book Festival with the Laredo Public Library. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was my first author table, and I was sitting down. It must have been 2018, I think, or 2016. And I was sitting down, and I had my table super sparse because I had like one collection complicated, and I was like with my little bookmarks and whatever. And I remember looking out and receiving people, and it was nerve-wracking to say the least, because even though I'd already been a teacher for several years, being a teacher is always reading and filtering other people's things. Yeah. You know, it's not the same. Being there at a table producing and promoting your own writing, you feel like a fraud. You feel like an imposter. And I'm like, somebody's going to tell me to leave or something, right? So everybody's coming up and saying hi and taking a look at my book and passing me by. I'm an unknown, right? And I look up and I see Dr. Bishop. Aww. And she's like, she's very soft-spoken. She's like, I'm so thankful that you fell forward with this and you continued. And so she bought my book, and I signed it for her, and I was like, oh yeah. And then when I went making rounds, I went to hers, and I bought her new collection that she was promoting at the time. And she signed it to me, and on the inscription, she put, keep on writing.
Oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God. And like all these people that come in and out of our lives, you know, they leave a much bigger lasting imprint than I think some of the times they're aware of. Because to Dr. Bishop, I'm probably one of 5,000 students in the last year.
Huge.
Yes. So I don't consider myself to be like something like, you know, other than, you know, that annoying little girl that asks like 5,000 questions. Yeah. Like I don't think I'm the first or the last one of those, right? So the fact that she remembered that I wrote, the fact that she inscribed it like that, it hit home. Like, it was like, okay, I'm not quite the imposter I think I am. Maybe I am doing something that fits me. And after that, I was like, I love this. And through this, and sending out query letters and sending in submissions and getting rejection letters from these anonymous places that had no idea who the hell I am. And sometimes being ghosted, that was the worst. Sending in submissions and not even getting a response. Like, did you love it, hate it? Like, could you give me something? Right? Yeah. Not even knowing anything. I was like, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting for somebody else to bring a notice to this, to bring a spotlight to this? I feel it deserves a spotlight. So you know what? I'm going to do it. And I put together and self-published my stuff. And then when I went from there, I was like, you know what? Again, I am not the first and I am not the last. And we have so many talented, wonderful writers here locally. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to help them. And so I started meeting with other writers and other authors. Laredo Border Slam was a huge support. They allowed me to take over a few of their workshops and that were free and open to the community. And I got to meet more writers, and I got to see how they wrote and what was their processes and what worked for them, and, you know, learning from each other as a collective should. And so I started signing on other authors, and I would do anything from line and content editing to beta reader, and then just kind of demystifying the publishing process. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to publish, but then they don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. And the intimidation factor is there. So I'm like, I want to cut out the middleman. Don't look for an intimidation factor. I am someone like you. I am you. And I was you. And I know how hard it is to combine the creative mind with the logistical structure of going through a publication process, because there's so many steps, and not getting discouraged along the way. So I provide more of a support system when it comes to that. And I've helped, thankfully, the ones who have given me an opportunity, I have helped a few writers become authors, and they're registered. They're registered with an ISBN number in the Library of Congress. Their books are out there. I just think, where is it? I just think that it's such a wonderful process, and people don't cross that threshold simply because they're like, where do I start? And if you go online and you research, wonderful, and you're going to find these things, and you're going to find these communities, these gatherings, these groups that'll help you. But you know how it is. Laredo is one of the biggest small town mentality ever, right? You feel like you need to know the person. So I'm like, all right, so I'll be the person you know. And then I work with people and I'm like, look, if you and I are not a good fit, I'll help you find a good fit, because there is more. There just wasn't anything closer than, if I'm not mistaken, closer than Austin and Houston for publishing houses that promoted local. There was a few that I looked at in San Antonio, but some of them were more vanity presses. And that's a whole other, enchilada.
Yeah,
so
style of writing.
Yeah, so I was like, we don't want to go down that road. So I was like, I have the credentials, and it was a lot of second guessing myself in the very beginning. And so I put out a couple of my collections first so that I could see what hiccups were in the printing line, what problems I had, what would arise with the proofs, how long would it take to get everything together. And I've been growing and going from there as best as I could.
That's amazing. And with that, thank you for giving the local writers an avenue to keep growing and to keep ascending and progressing. Because that's the thing about writing. My aunt kind of with Stephen King, because he's like, you find your formula and that's how you go. So she was just kind of like, that's sad. That means he's not challenging himself as a writer and pushing himself. And she's like, which is good, that's a commercial thing to make money. He's a businessman still. But she's like, but when you want to grow as a writer, you want to challenge yourself. And that's amazing. And getting published is a challenge, and like not necessarily a rite of passage, but it's something that writers really do think about, and they do wrestle with, like, am I good enough to be published? Will somebody read this? will I even sell like what I have? Was my message in my book even good enough for anybody to want to read besides me? And you guiding people that way is amazing. And not only do you help them get published, but you help them break through these second guessing of like these dark nights of the soul times where they're like, oh, is this even going to happen? Am I even cut out for this? So wow, that's amazing that you do that.
I'm trying. It's a daunting process, and it's the way that I found it working, of course, is word of mouth. Apart from promoting myself and promoting like crazy, word of mouth big time, and establishing relationships. I try to make the author that even if they meet once with me or they sign on with me, I try to make them feel welcomed. And it's like, you are a great writer. All we need to do is pull together the pieces of what it is you're missing. Just kind of clarify the process of what it is you need to do. And if I'm not the right fit for them, I don't force them to sign on with me. I'm all about transparency. I'm like, if I'm not for you because you're just going in a different direction, you want more from what you're doing, then all right, awesome. I'll help them with query letters. I'll try to find them a literary agent. I'll see if I can set up a few contacts or just kind of direct names of people that they can communicate with to go down the route that they want to choose, right? So even then, I'm not like trying to, I guess, like hoard them for me, because the end goal is for more Laredo writers to be on the shelf. That's my goal. I've always had this huge pet peeve of people who are like, oh, there's nothing to do in Laredo, and Laredo doesn't have that, and Laredo doesn't have this, and I'm like, then bring it. Like, stop complaining. We're never going to get anywhere if you don't bring it to Laredo. Exactly. And stop leaving Laredo. Like, Laredo is going to grow as a community if we grow with it. You can't say it's not, I don't know, like I'm all for people expanding their horizons and everything, but then don't complain, because you can't be born and raised and educated within our community, leave and take your gifts and your talent and your wonderfulness elsewhere, and then complain about Laredo. Or worse, stay here, don't bring nothing to the table, and then complain about Laredo.
Yeah, because that's what Dr. Carol would tell me. She's like, this is what happens with this city because of like of politics or whatever's going on with the community. Our beautiful, talented people leave, and then they don't come back.
Yeah, because they're hurt and they're hit and they are stalled, or they just feel like outside of here I can do it, and it's like, why when we can do it here? And I've seen and I felt a change in Laredo in the last few years with all this influxes of vendor markets and artisans, and you have Laredo Border Slam expanding, and they brought a slam competition here, the Southwest Texas Shootout. It's like Laredo can be known for more.
Yes.
And more in a positive light. We are not just a border town, but the border culture is just so beautiful that we can bring light to that in a positive sense as well. And there's so much talent here. Every event, every venue I go to where I get to see a local musician, a garage band, an indie artist. Every time I hear the poets go on stage for performance poetry with the slam, like there's so much depth here.
Yes, there is. Like, and I agree with you 100%, which is why this podcast, I helped the ladies it, because it's like, okay, so we have beautiful culture here, and we have beautiful musicians. We got rappers, we got people that are crafters. We even got like culinary artists that are bringing different fusions to us. Like, before, I would have to say, I have to go to Austin to get Thai food. Not anymore. I can go straight downtown and kai ties there, or like, we don't got anything going on, but we got the fashion shows going on. We got the drag queens going on. And we got the Camina Arte that just happened yesterday with the photographer, Steven Martinez, who is very prominent in Houston. Like, there's poetry and art in that photography. Like, there's the poetry and photography, the poetry and fashion, everything is art. We live it, we breathe it, we create it. So for people to be like, nah, it's boring, I was like, that's not true. Like, not the city's really trying with us. Like, they're trying with us to get our parks beautiful, to get this art out there.
Yes.
We're getting there.
Yeah, the injection of new blood on the political side, the opening and broadening of certain opinions or minds has expanded the cultural climate of Laredo, Texas. And I think that if we, those of us that are in the 35 and above category, can continue to support and promote, bring our own voices to the table, and encourage, if not follow, because sometimes the younger ones, they have such energy, right? So encourage, if not follow, the ones that are 15 and above, 25 and above. You know what I mean? And it all comes down to it. If you have something that you want, don't leave. Like, don't leave unless you're leaving to experience it and then come back and bring it here. You know what I mean? Like, bring it here because we need it here. And there's just so much richness. Little side note, I am so like kind of like distraught at the fact that this obsession with recording stuff wasn't around when I was younger to a certain extent, because I wish I had written down, recorded, sat with my grandmothers a lot more and just copied and asked them questions of all of the things that they knew, you know, because by the age of 14, I only had one grandmother left. Right around my early 20s, my last grandmother passed away. And, you know, I was a baby in this world. Like, I didn't know anything apart from the fact that I was like socially stunted to a certain extent.
No.
And now I'm like, I see this and I see other people and I see other young generation individuals who don't appreciate their grandparents and the richness that they bring to the table. Like, so many things, everything from, you know, how to make the best masa of tamales so that there's flavor, to how to preserve your salsas, to what it took to cross and be the first generation immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, there's so much history that's involved and that can be pulled from simple conversations.
And that's true, because I remember, like, I always ask my grandma a lot of questions. I don't leave that poor woman alone. I'm always like, Grandma, and this, and she's like, Mijita.
Don't leave her alone.
Like, Mijita, let me watch my TV. This is around
You're
the
like,
time.
no, Grandma.
Yeah, this is around the time I kicked your grandpa upstairs so I can watch my programs. He knows. And I was like, well, how would you do your hair back in the day? We didn't have hairspray. She's like, limon. I'm like, okay.
Are writing it out?
Got it. And so stuff like that, or like how to make the perfect chicken salad, like I'll call her and be like, how do I make chicken salad? And she'd be like, you have to do this, and it needs to be this mayonnaise, not that mayonnaise, because of this. Then they don't have anything written down.
No.
They eye it, they just look at it, and they'll be like, it's ready. And I'm like, I need everything step by step, because if there's a step, I freak out.
Yeah.
I can solve calculus problems for you, but like a simple recipe, I'll be like, I can't.
Yeah. Now I don't leave my poor mother alone. Like, I'm gonna be honest time. I'm gonna be 40 in a few months.
Still young.
And I'm the youngest of 6. And my mother is unstoppable. So I constantly call her up, constantly. And I'm like, Mom, y ese arroz, ¿cómo lo hiciste? And dijiste horchata, pero no me salió igual. Like, how do I do it? And I'm constantly asking her questions. And my mother is the same as most Hispanic traditional moms. Ay, mijita, nomás un monchoncito. Nomás dale una agarrada de la mano. And I'm like, Mom, like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, my hand's bigger than your hand, Mom. Like, are you sure? Like, do I just
My mom's getting into that habit too. Before she would measure everything to the T. Now she's just like, like,
yeah.
It's like Ursula just dropping all the nor in the water. Smoke's coming up. I'm like,
yeah.
now I'm like, no, Mommy. I'm like super OCD. She's like, I know. That's why I kick you out of the kitchen. Get out. Yeah, we have different styles of cooking. I'm super like, everything needs to be done to a T, systematic. And she's just like, no, you look at it and that's how you do it.
And I've been able to work with my mom with looking at it. I think now she's changed me. Like, now I cook the same way that she cooks. I try. I'm gonna say I try. I'm not gonna say I do. But I will say this. I knew that I had mastered the arroz when my dad went up for seconds. I had them over for dinner My dad went up for seconds. I was like, oh, my rice has made it.
That's the only thing I have learned to make exactly correctly to the T the first time she told me to do it, because like everybody in the family is like, who's gonna make the frijoles borrachos and who's gonna make the arroz, and they all look at my mom like, that's you, make the arroz. Yeah, because she's the one that gets it close to my grandma, but my grandma likes it dry and my mom likes it a little moist but not too moist. And she just told me earlier, like literally before I logged on to chat with you and to do this interview, she was like, it's because you're not supposed to be putting the tomato paste. That's what makes it all gooey. It's only water, not tomato paste. Only no the cubitos. I'm like, all right. I'm like, got it. She's like, no tomato paste. You put the tomato in there.
Yeah. My mom, when she sees the Nor, the bouillon cubes, she's like that's the good stuff, right? Like todo fresco y si no fresco, eso es like, está bueno. But God forbid I try to like inch forward tomato sauce or tomato paste, like, mijita. Like,
I guess that's just a no-no in rice.
I told my mom, I was like, look away, mom. I don't have time for it to simmer. Like, look away.
I guess that's a Hispanic thing. No tomato paste in the rice. You see, I did not know that until she told me. She's like, you just don't do that.
Yeah.
And your mom too. So my mom is 51 right now. So
your mom is young. My mom is over 65.
So that's a tradition thing. That's around my grandma's age. My grandma's in her 70s and she's the one that's like, no tomato paste. Yeah. They're super like, no. And my grandma's super Hellman's. That's the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mayonesa. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like Hellman's, not Miracle Whip, Hellman's.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Very particular.
But they know what they're doing.
Yes. And see, all these things, everything that comes from, our culture is deeply intertwined with food, as most cultures are, like as most cultures of color are. Mm-hmm. And it's something that if you get your parent, if you get your mom, your grandma, your tia, your whoever cooks, if you get them talking about food, you are going to pull so much more from them.
Yeah.
So much more. I've heard some stories of my mother growing up because she was like, la primera vez que hice esto, like, and then she'll tell me stories of my abuelita, my abuela Maria, that passed away when I was about 13. Mm-hmm. And my father more so is like, when my aunt or my uncle come to visit, like when we would go visit my Tio John before, and when my Tio Margie's visiting right now, we're all like sitting together, like in the living room or whatever, and we're talking, usually with like a drink on side. Yeah. Uh-huh. And that's where the conversation comes from my father, because his sister, his brother, whatever, they're talking about, oh, remember when we did this and we did that and blah, 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 blah. And you find out so many things about your parents, and you're like, what, mom, dad?
Yeah, that happened with us when Thanksgiving. It was after Thanksgiving, we were all just standing outside after we gorged ourselves, waiting for the tryptophan to kick in. And they were like, remember when mom and dad, grandma and grandpa left, and so started doing these travesuras here and there in the house, and nobody found that. And I'm like, you guys got away with that? Like, how?
Yeah, I know. And I keep saying that I'm going to bring like at least one of those little mini tape recorders or something to the next family gathering, because there's just so much. I was like, oh my God, if I could take all of these stories, all of these tales that I know will resonate with others, and turn it into a collection of stories, into a collection to share. Like it's just, I know it's going to be my own unique bubble because I have Hispanic and Irish ancestry. And so there's this one poem that my father and my mother both particularly love. It's one of the first performance pieces I used for slam poetry, because I actually signed up and participated in the Southwest Texas Shootout. And it's even been published in the Divino magazine here locally. Uh-huh. And it's called Duality. And one of the main lines that repeats in that one is, I'm too white to be Hispanic, too Hispanic to be white. A lot of that comes out in, a lot of the identification of the dual cultures comes out in that poem that I wrote, Duality, because growing up, like I said, shy, very quiet, introverted. I also sometimes felt very disconnected from some of my family members because I was la güerita, and They never made me feel in any certain manner because they were always just like, come play, vamos, go to. I just wasn't a runner or an athletic person.
Mm-hmm.
But I would look out. I would look out at my friends in elementary. I would look out at my family gatherings. I would look out at any general population that we went to, especially here in Laredo and Laredo. And I'd be like, I don't have that, gorgeous flowing raven dark hair. I don't have those, Selena Quintanilla curves. I don't have that golden caramel skin that tans so beautifully in the sun. I turn into a lobster. This is me tanned.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. This is me. I have gotten some color as I've gotten older.
Yeah, my dad turned into a lobster too. And
yeah, my husband loves to make fun of me when we go out and if I wear shorts, because he's like, he's like, I'm blinded. I'm like, really? Like, come on.
Leave me alone.
But it is what it is.
Challenged.
Yeah. And nobody ever expected me, because my first language is Spanish. Nobody ever expected me to be the one to speak Spanish. Especially when I got older working on the mall. I worked at Victoria's Secret for a while. They had us wear our last name on a badge. Uh-huh. And well, my last name was my father's last name, Dougherty. Uh-huh. And they would look at me and they would look at that, right? And back then in high school, I had flaming red hair and I would wear these green eye contacts. And I guess I wanted to like be extra Irish because I wasn't Irish enough. I was like, maybe I can play this one, right? And it was like, tax-free weekend when it would be my Oreo Menudeo. And they would see me, right? And they're like, I got you. So they would like, these customers from across and from downtown Laredo would come in and try to buy like these big purchases. And they would try to like fast talk me in Spanish, try to trip me up so that I would calculate it wrong in the register or whatever. And then when I would answer the back in Spanish and ask them to repeat or to pull the stuff out of their bag, they'd be like, oh, sí, aquí tengas. Like they would take out the thing. Like, I was like, no lo agarró de ese mes, mamá, acá son 3 por 15 y acá son 2 por 16. Usted lo está entrecambiando. And they're like,
snap.
I couldn't get it. And it was just because of the perception of what they expected me to be. So, I mean, imagine that in kinder, in first grade, like everybody would kind of like circle around me a little bit, apart from being probably, shy and not meeting eye contact, but like it was just a thing, and everybody has their childhood horror stories. I mean, it wasn't all bad, but it was something that I feel has influenced and molded me to who I am. And publishing, writing, putting my stuff out there has allowed me to get more comfortable with meeting new people and helping to put them at ease instead of the other one.
Any like book tours? Have you done a book tour since Looking into Infinity isn't the first one? This is the newest one. Be sure to check it out, guys. It's on Amazon. I can't put it down, and it has got a very nice texture. So for us book lovers there, thank you. I really appreciate that. It feels good to hold. So are you doing any book tours for this one? Have you done any book tours in the past?
No, book tours is one thing that I haven't done that I'm hoping to branch into for the new year, especially with this new collection that I'm gonna be releasing soon, hopefully. Again, being shy has been a hindrance at times, and now I'm trying to get more out there. And I'm trying to kind of book more stuff. My network has expanded, so I've had opportunities to be on certain local kind of platforms. For example, when Looking into Infinity came out, I did do a spot piece with KGNS. And then I also did go on, what's it called? Coffee and Magic with Sammy the House.
And Elsa, yeah, they're awesome.
They're wonderful.
Positive energy. I love them.
And they, I was interviewed with Que Pasa. I came out in the Laredo Morning Times, and all local stuff, right? And now I've gone, I guess, a bit of an audience. I got interviewed for this publication in Brazil.
Ooh, la, la.
I was able to get the cover of an indie mag in California.
That's amazing. Yay.
And it's, that was right around all that pandemic stuff. So everything was online. So like, it's like an unofficial book tour, I guess.
It counts.
Yeah.
We adapted to the shift, and we adapted very well.
Yeah. And so now with this new collection, I'm hoping to kind of book more venues in and out of Webb County, South Texas, and hopefully further up north. If I go out of Texas, I think I'm just going to shock the crap out of myself, but because I really haven't, I've gone, not counting across, right? I've gone out of Texas twice in my lifetime. And both of those 2 times were to Louisiana. And that was because my sister-in-law lives there now.
Everybody's in Louisiana this weekend. Like, what's going on? Like 6 or 7 of my family members are in New Orleans right now. Margie book clubs in Louisiana too.
Yes, I saw that.
I'm like, what's everybody doing in NOLA? Like, what's going on? Bring me tarot decks. Just bring me books too.
Yes, please, just books.
And bring me
beignets. Oh, beignets.
That the original Popeyes for me. Because I can't.
If I go on a book tour, I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
Yes, because since I honestly wanted to get into, like, is there any way that you would write like a novel, like a full-fledged novel, or would you keep it at like poems?
No, my Looking into Infinity and my new collection has a gathering of prose and poetry. So I do flash fiction and short fiction.
Yeah.
Some of my short fiction stories have expanded for me. One has become a full-fledged novel. I haven't released it yet. I set it aside. I did it as part of a project with the National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, in November. And I made it into a little over 75,000 words. So it's a full-fledged novel. I haven't looked at it again because it was so much and I was so emotional when I was writing it and going through the scenes with the characters, because it's fiction based. It's murder mystery and sci-fi. There's an interlacing of paranormal romance, but not really, because the romance is not the key factor at all, as much as I love those types of novels. And it is from the perspective of a villain, from a female protagonist that is evil and has no remorse. So it's a fully fledged novel. I just need to dedicate time to it. So there's a residency, a writer's residency that I applied for in France. Let's see if I get it.
You're gonna get it. We'll see. And
if I get it,
you'll be video chatting from us in book club. We'll have the projector there for you, and we can have the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Yes, definitely. And I want to go mainly because I want to take that novel with me, and I want to dive into it and dissect it and tear it apart and build it back up again. Because if I'm gonna branch this new category of writing, I want to do it as wonderfully as I can. Like, I want to do it as beautifully as I can, whether it grows on its own and garners an audience or not. I want to make sure that what I put out there is something that has been worked on, and not some like random rough draft that just I wrote in the middle of the night type of thing. Yeah. Right. So it's there, and I've promoted it, like quotes from it and stuff, on my Instagram account. I've given sneak peeks of certain chapters to a small group of mine, because I'm part of, it's like an unofficial tribe, I guess, of female writers in Southern California and in New Mexico and in New York. And these are the writers that I've met through social media platforms, and we kind of like collectively share amongst each other. Two of the main members that have published quite a bit are Chris Johnson, who does paranormal teen fiction for the most part, also prose and poetry, and also Nicole Streichars, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because I always ask her. Nicole Streichars, who does mostly historical fiction, but she also does realistic fiction. And those are two phenomenal female writers POC female writers who just dive into the worlds that they create, and they do it so beautifully. So I hold their opinions in high regard, and I try not to bombard them with my stuff. But between them, and Miss Brianna West, I love me Miss Brie. They give me feedback and stuff, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully by the summer of next year, I'm thinking. Hopefully, if I do get the residency. If not, I'll just, like, I don't know, go isolate myself in a hotel somewhere for 2-3 days. Because when you're mama, you can't do anything but be mama, and a novel takes more. So yeah. I would need to step out for at least a few days or a weekend or something to try to dive into the first half, if not the whole thing.
Yeah. Writers really do need their alone time to decompress the life that's going on, and then shift into that the writer now. I'm the omnipotent presence of this reality that I'm building, of this world that I'm creating. So any events that you're going to be going up to coming up?
Yes. So on July 9th, I'm going to be there at the La Lunada Fest. I'm sorry, at La Lunada for the Mystical Market Fest. I always get that name wrong. With Mandy Mendoza. She's the organizer. And I'm going to have my table set up. I'm going to have my books for sale. I'll be doing autographs, as well as a few of the other authors that have publicated with me. Shout out to Mr. Ricky M. Martinez. His new collection, Broken Reflections, is doing really good. As well as books available from Joaquin Solis, who had an amazing ghostwriter, aka shout out to Miss Alma Gonzalez. And outside of that, I'm hosting my own market. Yeah. So I have an upcoming market that I'm hosting on July 29 and July 30th. They are outdoor evening events happening at Cultura Beer Garden downtown. And you can hit up any of my social media pages to see details of those events. Outside of that, I'm not quite sure what's around the corner for me, because apart from applying for that writing residency, I also have been invited, as in my professional life, as a teacher, I've been invited to become a part of the We Are America project. And it's to publicate student writings. And I was like, yes, more local writers becoming authors. That's right, especially the younger generation.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna grow from there. Like, I'm gonna see what's up, because I want to do a book release. I haven't like cemented down the terms with a particular venue, but once I have that information up and running, it'll be up on my website and on my social media platforms, because I want some more stuff in July and August before we launch off into the new school year.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I was telling the boss lady, Ilana and Jackie, like, hey, once like mid-July hits, I'm gonna have to disappear because I gotta fix my sleeping schedule and getting ready for convocation and all that good stuff that we got to do.
Yes.
And all those new drills we got to learn now. So
yep, I know.
And then the K-12 summit that's coming. Who knows what's going to happen now. But thank you so much for stopping by and letting us know on everything that is Miss Cindy Bernal Doughtery. Because there's that singer Doughtery, right? He's like a rocker.
Yeah. I think he pronounces it Dougherty. Doughtery or Dougherty, something like that.
Yes, and I hope everything gets better for him and his situation. I heard he was in something really bad.
So. I've heard of him. Like, I saw him when he was still on America's Got Talent, was it? When he first debuted.
I only heard about him when he came here to Laredo, when these obscure chicks were like I say obscure because that's like an obscure like band, like most Laredoans are like cool. Or they're more into the mainstream. And so they're like this small niche is the proper term. This small niche of people were like, oh my gosh, Doughtery's coming, and I was like, wait, who? And he seems pretty.
Well, hopefully someday you'll come across a small niche of people that are like, oh my God, Cynthia Doughtery is releasing a new book, and I'm like, oh.
It's gonna be us in book club. I'm gonna start being like, we should read her books and the local writers here.
Yes, especially if you guys want the exclusive on my new collection coming up, if it fits with what we're doing for the next coming book club, because it's called Goddess Resilience and Rage.
Oh, that's because the goddess is both dark and light, guys, and
Exactly.
it's what it is. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Awesome. I hope to hear from you again. And I'm going to be stopping at that Lunada Fest because that maybe I'll get courage and share some poetry that I've been working.
Yes, awesome. And bring your book. I'll sign it for you.
Yes. Perfect. Yay, guys. So go and buy books from her. I need to get Ricky's book too.
I'll have copies at the table and help me around.
All right. So y'all heard you should go to the Lunada Fest July the 9th. And it's here on Chihuahua Street. It's where Chano's used to be by the Dairy Queen for the locals. I don't know the exact number because I'm a hardcore Laredoan like that, where you don't give me a number. You're like, ¿por dónde estás? I'm over here by this place by Cantarranas, or like you name a.
Yes.
You're like, okay, I know where you're at.
I want to say, and don't trust me because I invert numbers, but I want to say it's 1516 Chihuahua or 1615 Chihuahua. What is it? It is right there.
Dairy Queen, the Stars, and the Popeyes are at the Lunada is there behind the Melrose, catty corner to the Melrose, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So thank you and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Mama. Okay, everybody. And with that concludes the very amazing Zoom call that I had with Cindy Doughtery-Bernal, author of Looking into Infinity, a collection of poems and short stories. And if you want to know more about Cindy or get to know her, and a writer that's going to be on the next episode of the Introverted Poets podcast, Miguel Ricky Martinez, author of Broken Promises, he too will be at La Lunada at the Mystic Market Vendors Fest, July 9th on 1516 Chihuahua, right where the Chanos used to be for the locals, next to the Dairy Queen off of Guadalupe. Information will be provided at the end of the video promos here or in the description box below, wherever you are watching or listening to this very special episode of the Introverted Poets podcast that is both video and audio. You can find the video version on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and Anchor.fm, whereas the audio platforms are still at the same old usual spot. And with this is Clarissa Ann Valdez, also known as the Geeky Fit Mama, filling in for Ilana Jade, wishing you all a very good night and have a very safe 4th of July for those of you that celebrate. Good night.